Welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Lab podcast. I'm Leigh Baker, your host for today's episode, where I get to sit down again with Sabryna Liddle. Sabryna continues to make an impact in the industry and is also the VP of Coaching Excellence for Catalyst Coaching 360. During this episode, she and I are going to dive into what we wish we'd known as new coaches. And because she and I have been in the industry a long time, I guarantee we'll have a lot to discuss. I also want to take a moment to share an opportunity for you to connect with other coaches. So this September 25th through 27th, we're hosting our 8th annual coaching retreat and symposium in Estes Park, Colorado. You can learn more at catalystcoachinginstitute.com/retreat. Now, lastly, if you're a coach or aspiring coach looking to hear a candid conversation between two seasoned coaches, this episode is for you. Now let's get to it. Woohoo! Sabryna, woohoo! And Sabryna and I were chatting about different ideas and topics we wanted to talk about. And we came up with this idea of, man, wouldn't it be nice to talk about what we wish we knew as new coaches now that we've been in the industry for a while? So here we are to talk about all that comes with that and all that we've learned and have yet to learn and the uncertainty that sometimes comes with it. So if you listened to the episode previously, or shout out if you'd like to listen to more episodes, we talked a little bit about uncertain times. And I think part of that will roll into this conversation, but we'll also get into some other things that we've learned over the years.
And I'll just pop in with a highlight on what we mean by coaching for a while. We've been doing this 20 years now with Catalyst Coaching 360. And when we started, that was the same year, drum roll please, that the iPhone was released. So all the focus that you're out there seeing with health and wellness coaches on Instagram and Facebook and X and all, that wasn't a thing. Like, that was a different world. And so you're going to hear these two talking about certainly current and what does that look like and what does that mean and how does that influence them. But they're not coming at it from a coach that's been doing this for a year and a half. They've watched the industry change over 2 decades. So keep that in mind as you're listening to the responses to these different things. They're not, it's a wide lens. So yeah, just take it away, you two. But I just want people to have that context that this is not, oh yeah, I picked it up 6 months ago and here's what I'm doing. It's, we've lived this for 2 decades and this is where things have adapted and changed and shifted as we've moved through this process.
Yeah, it was really fun to go into the time machine and think back, how did I feel 19 years ago? Yeah. And like you say, Brad, the coaching industry was young then.
Barely existed.
It definitely has evolved. So I am really excited that we get to talk about this today, Leigh. So Leigh, I'm actually going to ask you, think back to when you were a brand new coach fresh out of your program. What do you recall feeling uncertain about and feeling a little bit anxious about?
2 things. One, I wanted to make sure I scribed everything because I didn't want to, I had a fear of just missing something. And I also wanted everything to be not perfect, but planned out. I wanted I wanted to feel confident in my process. I wanted all of my the agreement and the experience of the client and their experience with me to be fairly seamless, which I know is a high ask looking back, but that I think was, yeah. And then taking notes, I not word for word, but close to it. At one point I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of notes to be taking. So those are 2 things.
Okay. So you were challenging yourself to recall everything about the client and you were going to do that in the most perfectly performed coaching session possible.
Yes. Emphasis on perfectly, right? That was my ambition. I was like, okay, here's how it's going to go. I learned real quick that I did not need to write down everything. But we can get to that later. But I would say the less I wrote down, the better coach I was because I was more present. And I learned that. And so that was so interesting to me.
That's huge. There's your nugget, everybody. Okay, you can hit stop now.
Right.
I mean, seriously, think
Don't
of what
take
she just
notes.
said. We come in and what a great, I remember that as a physical therapist, trying to take notes every single night of all the patients that I'd seen and then reviewing those and digging in the data and wow, what a comment, Leigh. Once I stopped writing so much down, I became a better coach. Whew.
Mm-hmm. I remember, and this is really funny because, okay, so we were doing corporate coaching right away, and I was thinking two things. I was thinking I had to be an expert mistakenly, but this is 19 years ago. I thought I had to be an expert in diet and exercise. I thought everything we were talking about had to be goal-centered and focused on physical wellness. And I felt so much pressure about the client's goals. Like I was feeling the pressure if they were going to achieve their goals. And I actually even remember, Brad, I don't know if you remember this, that we originally were like, well, how do we report outcomes? And so we mistakenly, again, you got to remember, this was a long time ago. We were thinking, okay, at the second session, what percentage did they achieve their goal?
Yeah, absolutely. We were looking for some sort of data because we were one of the trendsetters in the industry of saying, how do we provide these employers that we're supporting and the employees that work for them to present the way that they're feeling that support? How can we make that measurable? And we stumbled a lot. That's a great example.
And so I remember feeling almost more responsible for my clients' goals than they probably felt, which, by the way, everybody, that is not the way to go about coaching, to feel more responsible for your clients' goals than they are.
So it sounds like pressure on the parameters of coaching. So like this description of when we think of health and well-being, like physical, nutritional well-being, knowing everything there is to know about it, and also feeling a responsibility for the clients to see through their goals, which feels heavy to me to have to carry the weight of all of those things. What did you learn about that process?
Well, it wasn't sustainable because I remember as a new coach feeling exhausted because I felt like I was putting so much into it, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I was having to do all the work, which again, when I think back now, I'm like, well, this seems silly. How am I doing all the work? But I think you feel that, like you said, Leigh, when you're like, oh my gosh, I got to take all these notes and then I have to deliver the perfect session, in order to serve my client. I felt really exhausted. And at the time, with corporate coaching, you're coaching a lot of people. It's not sustainable. You can't feel exhausted every day coaching because then all of a sudden you're not walking the talk. So I learned that wasn't the way to go. But also behavior change doesn't come from me, the pressure of me as the coach wanting the person to change.
Yeah, it's that realization that the client really needs to be in the driver's seat and almost releasing our expectation for how things will go and the outcome.
Yeah. It is,
and it being tied to our behavior versus our client's behavior.
Right. And I think back then, like, I do think, the coaching has evolved. It is really cool because I do think original or coaching back then was very goal centric versus behavior change centric. Right. So very much outcome based, again, based on the fact that we're like, okay, what percentage of
right. So. I like that you brought that up because it's like we realized that, and I'm hearing you say too, the industry also realized that, right? So like when we first started coaching, it was like, we talk about SMART goals, which are evidence-based. There's a process behind that, right? But there's this shift from like only focusing on the goals to this whole being and this whole person and the process within that. and not having it be so tied and so granular and really putting it back on the client. So I'm hearing like, we learned that the industry also has shifted to that focus on bigger purpose and, alignment in like our vision and what we're connected to in our community versus just seeing through to an outcome of a goal we set in a session.
Well, exactly. And I think that came from coaches working with clients and thinking, wait, when are people having success? Are they having success if we only focus on the goal that they walked in the door with? Or are we having success when we coach the whole person?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And redefining what success is, I would say too.
Yes. Let's keep doing the time machine back for the new coaches. Because I think there are a lot of things that feel really clunky when we're new coaches, and I want to acknowledge that. So besides some of the things you mentioned, what were other kind of things that you realize now about your coaching skills that you wish you would have realized originally?
Ooh, that's a good question, Sabryna. There are a lot of different things I could go with.
I know. I can remember a lot. That's why I'm like, ooh, thank goodness I evolved.
I would say, so the coaching skills specifically, I would say that I would consider it maybe a little bit of a misstep now. I was more focused. I had a habit sometimes of falling into kind of like the assessment realm versus deeper rapport, reflection, and connection building, right? So I think that I got into this cycle at times, or maybe a habit of continuing to ask questions when there was this pause and reflection that was warranted. So I would say in the beginning, when I would ask all of these questions, it started to feel kind of like an assessment, right? Like I'm just like going through and like information gathering, and also like we're building a relationship, but it's different than when you're reflecting what you hear from the client, because then I'm inherently taking up more space in the conversation, talking more, hearing less about what's on their mind. So I would say that was a misstep, because I also noticed they didn't feel as great. Like I didn't feel as great about that session at the end of the session, right? So in terms of a coaching skill, I'd say I lean more on questions in the beginning than reflections.
That's good too, because I think a lot of times when you're learning about coaching in a program, we do learn that what do you do first? Oh, you provide your client with an assessment, right? So structure wise, that's where our head is. That's maybe not where our heart is.
Right.
But that is where our head is.
Well, and you got to remember the industry as a whole. If we go back to the time when we started in 2007, it was all about biometrics, step counts, fit trackers, filling in box checking activities on a website. And so, of course, we were falling prey to that. That was what led into what we were trying to do on a personal level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I know that was, I think, Sabryna, you brought up structure. And I would say that I think it's good to have some structure in your process in your coaching. Mm-hmm. I would say I probably adhered too much to the structure, which then led me into more of those questions and assessment type feel in the beginning. And then the realization of like having to shift that to improve my relationships and rapport and the client outcomes, like inherently.
Right.
They can, fill out a 10-page document on an assessment, and then I can have them answer more questions in a session, and you can see that might not necessarily equate to them having great outcomes or positive change or a good experience.
Well, I think this is what we want to say to new coaches, because I think, when you are learning something new, I think it is so helpful to have structure, because you're trying to learn it. And so kind of having a sense of what it is. We need structure to learn.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And so it makes sense that we're like, oh, okay, this is what I learned. But I think what we learn as coaches, then we get into the session and you're really with your client, and your client really doesn't care about your structure way. What they care about is you, like your coaching presence. Like, how are you providing curiosity? Are you providing what I think is so important is unconditional positive regard? And I think when we ask too many questions to start out in a relationship, it doesn't feel like unconditional positive regard. Even if we have it, it starts to feel like judgment, right? Because, oh, my coach keeps asking me questions.
Right. Judgment, or it turns into this expert role because I'm asking enough questions where it shifts that dynamic. I'm curious your thoughts on when you first started coaching, what missteps you might have recalled in early sessions.
Yeah, I remember. I remember talking to
Let's hear it, Sabryna.
Right. But I do recall feeling like the pressure to fill the space. The pressure to be the one talking. And I was so afraid of silence. And it's so funny because I was thinking about this. I was thinking about times when I've been somewhere else, like maybe a doctor's office, or maybe when somebody was, kind of talking with me. And when they keep talking, I actually get frustrated. And so, because we all have all these thoughts going on in our head, and if somebody else is talking too much, we can't process. And so that's what I really have changed over the years. It would be so cool if I had the data on how much talking I did in a coaching session in 2007 versus, 2026, because I think the ratio would be so different.
That's an idea for a new coach, maybe. I mean, I know that sometimes we talk about, in practice sessions, sometimes in our program, you have a mentor, they're giving you live feedback. And then once you graduate from your program and you're out in the world, you don't necessarily get that feedback and continued development. So I would say maybe to a new coach, like if I were to go back, I'd ask a client if they were okay with me recording a session for my own growth and development to get feedback on, and then doing it like annually, like once a year, and then assessing how I'm doing, and then having someone else listen in with the client's permission to the recording. I feel like that would be a really cool thing to do.
That is a really cool thing. I do have this weird part of me that's really data driven. That would be really cool. Okay. To have the actual data of time.
Yes.
Ooh, I like that. Great idea.
All right. I've got a left field question for the two of you. As these coaches get into learning the skill set, my suspicion is other relationships in their life change, improve. Communication's better. Have either or both of you seen that occur as a parent, a child of an adult parent, a friend, a spouse? Have you seen your coaching skills go beyond your coaching skills into other relationships, not as a coach, not as suddenly you're the go-to person who, I got to call Sabryna because she'll know how to guide me. Not that. I mean, just in your everyday relationships, have you seen your coaching skills as you become a better coach, a more effective coach? Your time spent talking versus listening has changed, like you were talking about. Have you seen your other relationships, your non-professional, in quotes, relationships shift at all?
That's so funny. I'm thinking about you, Leigh, and I think Leigh is just an amazing person. Again, remember we were roommates, and so I know kind of how Leigh is wired. Right. And so I think Leigh is this amazing person. All that I could think of when you asked that question, Brad, is I'm so different
than you were.
Than I was. Yes. And that's why I believe so much in coaching, because in the coaching skills, in the skills of coaching, because you start to use that style in your life and it's transformative.
I just remember we used to do all the Catalyst Coaching Institute trainings live in Denver. People would fly in, we'd rent a hotel, we'd do the meeting room there. And I can still picture this. It was a powerful moment for me. A student came back in after a break, and you could see she had some tears in her eyes, and we're just like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah." And in front of everyone, she shared that she and her husband had been having some struggles, and she had just called to check in on the kids. And at the end of the call, he said, "I don't know what you're learning there, but whatever it is, keep doing it. Because this was our best call you and I have had in months." And I was just like, wow. And that's what I'm kind of getting at is, have you noticed as you've picked these skills up that other relationships in your life have changed for the better?
Yeah, I'd say so. I was trying to think of a specific example or type of relationship. And I would say maybe with my friends more so, because I feel like, we've got friends or friend groups where we like to give advice, right, to each other unsolicited at times, or sometimes our friends will ask. And I did notice a shift over the years of, instead of me just giving advice, even if they asked for it, asking some more questions or being curious about their thoughts around the situation or their feelings around it. And I found that at the end of the conversation, it was completely different than if I had just given my advice on it. And they were more empowered to go on with, their decision or next steps or what have you, in a way that they were more empowered by, if that makes sense. And so I noticed a shift there, because I've always been known to as this kind of go-to person, right? And sometimes that translates into advice, or having the details or having the information or what have you. And when you shift that conversation to put it back in the individual's seat and really stay curious and explore, then it's more impactful for both of us and for them in their relationships that they're navigating.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
And just to clarify for the listeners, these two, it's not like they were college roommates for 4 years or anything. When Sabryna said that they roomed together at the Catalyst Coaching Retreat and Symposium last fall. And it was fun to hear the stories that came out of that. But when Sabryna said that, I thought, I bet a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, they were college roommates. That's so amazing. They weren't college roommates. So anyway, with that, continue on.
Yes, Sabryna was stuck with me for 3 days, not 4 years. So yeah, we've talked a little bit about missteps in early sessions. Before we move on to maybe what surprised us about our clients when we were new coaches, I would like to mention, because we did talk a little bit about structure, and I kind of mentioned I was almost too structured. I will say that what helped me in regards to structure was the structuring of the session, if that makes sense. So having this kind of skeleton, not to the detail down to the second of what I'm going to ask or what I'm going to do next, but this skeleton of establishing checking in with the client, establishing a focus, making sure that they're taking away from the session what they are wanting to take away from. So whether that gets into goals and action steps or things to experiment or consider between now and next time we connect. So I will say that having a skeleton structure for me was helpful over time. I started out with so much, all the notes, all the details, all the time, not timestamps, but pretty specific on how I needed to go throughout the session. And over time, I found my way with what made me feel in most alignment with my clients. So you mentioned, Sabryna, it's good to start out with the structure and experiment the things that you've learned and continue to refine those things, and also find your way with them and your voice and your, the way you feel most connected to the bigger process, I would say too.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I actually think as I evolved as a coach and got away from considering myself a new coach, I actually did lean more into the idea of, at the beginning or the meat of a session, really exploring strengths and values of the client and really sitting a lot of the time there. I think when I was a new coach, I really, again, it's going back to being so concerned about the goal, the original stated goal of the client. And that's what I really love now, is because I still do that. Now I still lean into, let's just explore and be curious about the client and draw out their strengths and draw out their values and remind them of the things that we hear that are the strengths, and let the client get to sit in that, because I think the client, they actually come, I think, a lot of times with a lot of negative bias towards themselves.
Yeah. So the client comes in with, I think newer coaches listening would probably attest to the fact that they've had a few practice sessions or they're getting their feet wet in the coaching space. And the first thing the client's going to say out the gate is, I didn't do what we said last time, right? Or like, I didn't reach my goal, or like, everything is going to crap this week. And that's a shift that it takes, like, to understand, okay, well, how do I start the session so it doesn't go in that way?
Right.
How can I shift those mindsets around how they treat themselves with self-compassion?
Exactly.
In this process.
Like, don't problem solve first, right? Because it seems like, as a new coach, you're exactly right, Leigh. That client comes, oh my gosh, hi coach, I didn't do what I said. And if that's what they start with, and then you stay there and problem solve, that's not a satisfying session.
No,
right?
That's a hard session.
That's
if you
a hard
stay in the
session.
problem solving. Yeah.
Right. But we've learned, I think most training programs would, lean on, okay, well, let's explore with the client, and let's do a appreciative inquiry, discover, and just sit in their strengths and sit in their values, and right, and dream a little bit. And I'm like, oh, that structure helps.
The process. Yes. Versus the outcome. I think, like you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
Not just focusing on the goal accomplishment and what's next, but actually sitting with where they're at, how they're feeling, what their thoughts are around where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah. And really listening for their emotions and really listening for their values. Yeah.
Speaking of goals, I'm curious what you were most intimidated by, like topics you might have been most intimidated by when you first started coaching.
Like goals, I remember being kind of intimidated by actually certain people. I remember being intimidated by people that actually seemed like they knew what their goals were and they were just fine. They didn't need a coach. Again, this was corporate coaching, and they were just too busy. Why would talking to me help? So that I found intimidating as a new coach. Right.
And let's not let that sit there. So now you work with those types of clients all the time. What has changed in your A, mindset, and maybe B, approach? I'm not sure if there's a B there, but walk us through that for the people that are saying, oh my gosh, Sabryna, yes, that's me too.
I actually leaned on, this is really interesting because you feel, those were the people that intimidated. So I felt inside, right, very intimidated. But what I leaned on, and what I still lean on, is trying to get to know them and what makes them tick. Like, oh, I hear you. You are so busy. What are you busy with? What do you love to do? Or what? So this goal that you're doing so great with, tell me about it. Like, why is it so important to you? And I would just dive right in with them, even though I felt intimidated on the inside. So it's almost like, yeah, I feel this way. I feel intimidated, but I went with, let's go with getting to know them and getting to know what matters to them. And when you show true interest in a person's life, they're like, oh, that's weird. Right? What I find is that a lot of people haven't been listened to. And so that's what I would say, to a new coach, is just set it, kind of see if you can table your feelings of insecurity and just be curious about the person, like truly curious, because people are actually super interesting.
Right? Agreed. Yeah.
Like, why do you want to have that goal? Whoa, that's crazy, right?
And I always used to tell myself, I think mentally and verbally before starting a session, I don't have to have all the answers. So when I used to coach in this industrial workplace, you'd coach everything from shift workers to top level managers, executives. And it would always be there would be this thing where you're okay, on your docket this week, on your coaching list, there's executives on there. And it was oh, this kind of scary thing. And I don't know why I was chalked up to be like that it had to be different. But I think, like you said, taking a genuine curiosity and human connectedness approach to people, and remembering you do not have to have all the answers. You're not there to tell them what to do, give them advice, right? You don't have to have all the answers. And the more of that open space you allow them to explore, discover, talk about what they're passionate about and they value,
yes,
the better that value they're going to perceive, right? And the more of the rapport you're going to build. So,
I mean, people are afraid that we're going to tell them what to do. That's a thing. As a coach,
yes,
don't you think?
Yes.
And
they come guns a-blazing sometimes, especially on certain topics. So newer coaches, I would say certain topics that are tied to maybe a little bit of stigma almost, tobacco cessation, or maybe substance use, or just perceived negative behaviors. And maybe the program is tied to a kind of incentive of decreasing that habit, or making change in that habit. They may come kind of guns a-blazing of Leigh, I am not going to quit smoking no matter what you tell me. That can be terrifying as a new coach when you're oh gosh. But in that moment, Sabryna, you mentioned, just being curious with them and seeing them as a human being versus this metric and outcome makes a huge difference. So it is that genuine curiosity around okay, smoking's off the table. What's on your mind that you would like to talk about today? What would be the best use of our time today? What's going to make this the biggest bang for your buck? Knowing smoking's off the table. That's kind of what I went in with, shared language too. If they're this is off the table, or they are talking about a different direction, kind of leaning into that, right? Because it's their lane we're on. But I love that. Yeah.
Well, those were the people. Were there certain topics that were hard for you to coach, or scary for you to coach?
Maybe initially it was the more abstract ones, which Sabryna, you talked a little bit about earlier, how years ago, there was this emphasis, and sometimes still to this day, this emphasis on biometrics or very specific outcomes, right? And when someone comes to a session and they're a caregiver for their parents now, they've just had a huge medical diagnosis, they're maybe even in the burnout realm where it's they're just feeling at their wit's end and nothing's working. It's those abstract and almost sensitive things that really touch home to a client that were a little uncomfortable, I would say at first, when I first started coaching, because I was there was no health education in the guidebook around this, right? Just leaning into your tools as a coach and skills as a coach, I would say. But yeah, I mean, those ones were a little, I don't want to call them scary, but scarier in the beginning, because I was oh, like this expansiveness around what we can talk about in health and wellness coaching, like is truly expansive, right? Versus just like these 8 dimensions of well-being or 6 pillars of health and wellness. It's more than that. So I think realizing that was a little.
Did you notice when it shifted, or was it just a gradual, as you learned more, you got more comfortable? Was there a cliff, like you went, boom, okay, now I'm good with this? Or was it more, just kind of over time, it became more comfortable?
I would say over time, because I mean, like I think about like anything that we do in our life, we never just pop in and are like the quote unquote expert at it, right? Like we learn new things all the time. And then we look back and we're like, oh my gosh, like I could do this in my sleep now, right? It's like people say it's like riding a bike. I wouldn't say coaching's like riding a bike. Like you got to be in a certain presence and space. But it is one of those things where like at first you're like, am I really going to be able to like pedal these forward? Am I really going to be able to like make a positive difference? And then you start to believe in yourself more because you have those sessions where you're like, okay, I'm here. There's no running away from this because I'm in this session. So I've got to lean on the skills I know that it's not going to be perfect, know that I'm still learning. And then over time, you get more comfortable, I would say. And you learn like the difference between, oh, that session I did more question asking. This session, the client was doing more of the talking and I noticed this. So I did take note of that. So I don't know, Brad, if that helps, but it is a gradual over time. It's not an overnight.
I think it's a good question, Brad, because I had something that came to mind for me. I noticed myself becoming a better coach, like when I began like teaching more. Isn't that interesting? And I did want to say, I think when you teach anything, you of course become better at it because you start to know it better. And it's not because I'm teaching my clients, but because I started to learn more about behavior change science and neuroscience and how the thinking, feeling, behaving cycle affects things. And so like, I mean, again, it's a gradual thing, Brad, but I think what got me to be a better coach was this continual drive for me to learn more about behavior change, not just health and wellness.
Which is the key. I mean, we're experts in what? Behavior change. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I think a lot of coaches forget that. And I think a lot of coaches with the intimidation factor that you were talking about with the executives, I remember as a new physical therapist going in to meet with orthopedic surgeons and my coworkers would be like, oh, I'm so nervous. It's Dr. blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I'm not challenging him on his surgery. I'm not trying to out-surgery him. I'm sharing my expertise that I know far better than he does. And so why would you be intimidated by someone who has no idea how you do what you do when you're the expert in orthopedic physical therapy? He or she is the expert in how to replace the knee or repair the rotator cuff or whatever. That's not the conversation. And you've identified the same thing. You are, listeners, you are the expert in behavior change. There is zero reason for you to be intimidated. It's fine if you are. It's human nature. But you don't need to feel any sort of intimidation because they're probably intimidated by you. This is your arena.
But I think like what also to that point, like what has been really cool, I think from when I first started coaching, again, since 2007 when I was 14.
There you go.
Just kidding.
Good call. You were 15 and a half.
Right. I was 14 and a half. Is that there has been like a lot of cool things to stay on top of, like to learn about, right? Yeah. Like all the behavior science and decision-making science. And again, neuroscience that's really, there's been so much cool stuff that people continue to, do studies on, and we learn more about what makes people tick. Like, why do they behave the way they do? Why do they choose the way they do? And so I want to say to all these coaches, yes, you're new, and yes, you might be like feeling intimidated, but oh, this is so cool. Look what you get to continually learn.
Sabryna, I think you bring up a good point too, that like after you go through your coach training program and you start coaching, or you pass your board exam and you have 50 sessions behind your belt, like you're in it. It doesn't stop there. Like, I think there's a theme here that we're talking about that we've learned too. Like, it doesn't stop there. Like, we're not just like, okay, we've learned all of this information, we're good to go. There is a continual growth with coaching, and it is okay, like, to be in that growth. And like we're telling you, even today, after being in this field for a long time, we are continuing to stay immersed with learning new and different things of how we can connect with our clients. So it is like just a constant development and enhancement, I would say, of your skills as a coach, and both in the behavior change world and in the health and wellness industry. The behavior change comes first, in my opinion. Like, if we are always in the foundational mindset of we are the expert in behavior change, like Brad and Sabryna mentioned, and also staying well equipped with that understanding of health and wellness topics, we will feel more confident when people bring up things that are happening in the industry. Because clients will bring up trends, things happening in the health and wellness world. And if we have the foundation of behavior change, and we also have a general understanding of like, what is it that's going on within our world right now in the health and wellness space, we'll be able to have those conversations better, I would say, in a session. So stay abreast. Yeah.
I think it's so important to stay connected to a group or to other coaches too, because I know, we're all human and we can kind of get stuck in our ways in how we're coaching. I mean, right? And it's really interesting because I think in some industries, if you're putting a cog on a wheel, well, then you just want to put the cog on the wheel over and over again. But the thing is, with our people are different. People are unique. And I think we have to, as coaches, continually evolve and make sure we're trying different things to meet the needs of all those unique people that are out there.
And you're the glue between all these different options out there, from the physician to the nutritionist to the PA, et cetera. The old saying, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We're in some ways, we're the only non-hammer out there being a resource for people. Right. They're going from hammer to hammer to hammer to hammer of working with people that have their answer, their stock answer. And we may be one of the few, if not the only, non-hammer available for people to change their lives.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
Okay, and everybody, we are now non-hammers.
That's good, because we also have nonviolent communication skills in coaching, right? So no hammers around these parts. Sabryna, I want to go on a flip side of this, because we're talking about how there's like this adaptiveness to the field, and like kind of the encouragement to new coaches that, you will continue to grow, even 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 plus years, 40 years in the field. Like, you will continue to grow. Please do. Like, please continue to do that.
Yes.
I am on the flip side, and the answer may be no, but I'm curious what you think will not change about coaching, or has not changed in the last
that's such a good
X amount of years. Like, what's remained the same, would you say?
Oh my gosh. I think it comes down to what stays the same is really like prioritizing curiosity and coaching presence. That will always be like, that's not going to go away. Right. Really being curious and connecting. It's so interesting. Leigh, when you're talking about, we're saying we're going to always, with coaching, we're always going to grow, and you can always get new information, and we're going to keep growing. This is really funny. And maybe Brad, this too, the Arthur Brooks strength to strength. Arthur Brooks, his theory is we tap out at something, right? We level out, we reach a peak, and then we better shift gears. I just don't think that's the truth with coaching. I think, oh my gosh, I think the years of experience and the different experiences with different people, I think that just layers on and on. Like, I just do think we can keep growing as coaches, right? So what never changes with coaching? The fact that we can always grow and be a better coach. I think that's right. It's not like, it's not like a football player where, you're only going to be, there's going to be a point. You're not going to get better as a football player because there is a ceiling, right? But that's not true with coaching. I don't think. Prove me wrong. No.
I'm not going to prove you wrong because I agree with you. I'm putting on the hat of a new coach who's like, okay, they're telling me I always have to continuously grow and improve. That feels overwhelming when I'm just starting out, right? So I think Todd and Brad, you might have some thoughts around this too. Like, I want to marinate on this a little bit to develop this out a little bit.
Well, and I think there's a difference between the pressure of I have to grow and wow, I'm in a career where I will always be growing. Like, that's just part of being a coach. It's like we have 2 grandkids now, and they're going to be growing for the next 17 years, and then they're going to be growing in different ways for the next. And it's not like they go, oh, I'm 3, Gramps, and I'm going to have to be 4 next year. They're like, Gramps, it's almost my birthday, and it's going to be so fun. Like, if we could take that attitude as coaches of, I don't have to grow. I'm in one of the unique roles in the world right now where I get to continuously grow. And as a result, my clients' lives are better.
Mm. Yeah.
I love that.
That's cool. And, I was going to say, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today also was what are we seeing with the coaching industry? And what I think is so cool, not only, we just said we're going to keep growing, but the range of topics or specialties or niches coaches can find and fill. I think that's so cool, right? Well, again, back in the caveman days when I started coaching, on diet and exercise, I don't know. I didn't know, now you can coach on obviously diabetes, metabolic syndrome, but you can also coach on GLP-1s. You can coach on menopause. You can specialize. You can coach on mindset. You can coach on brain health. We had Sarah on here. She's coaching on AI. I'm like, everyone, how cool is that? That there are just so many things that we can help coach people on. That's cool.
Yes. If you had a crystal ball back in the caveman days, would you have expected it to be as expansive as it is now?
No, I would have thought we were just going to coach about saber-tooth running away from the saber-tooth tiger. No.
The stress response. I got it.
Exactly. No, I literally had no idea. That's what I think is so, so cool. And what I want to tell new coaches is there's so many things that you can coach on. What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? We can all coach. Focus on behavior change. Yes. But also what else? What else do you want to learn more about? That you can then coach on. I think it's cool.
And in the midst of a world where information, it was readily available in 2007, but remember the iPhone's just being released, but now we all have this computer in our pocket that can answer any question in 12 seconds. And our lives aren't, different conversation here, but for the most part, we're not applying it. And now as coaches, we get to help people bring that information to fruition, to help them. Mm-hmm. We used to use the little hashtag better than yesterday, not racing your neighbor, not, competing against somebody else, but how could tomorrow be a little bit better? And we get to help with that.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that just such a cool goal? How can we make tomorrow better? That's what's never changes. Leigh, back to your question, which you asked, what's not going to change about coaching? Probably Brad's hashtag better than yesterday is still just applicable. That's not going to change.
Yeah.
And it's a always opportunistic better than yesterday, not a forced or a should. It's not, you should be better, Sabryna. You should be better, Brad. Is there an area of your life that you would like to be better? Because if so, we're here to walk alongside you and help you move toward that. So it's not the should, it's not the have to, it's not the gotchas. It's the supportive walking alongside, helping you design and then live out, not the perfect life. This is earth, for goodness sakes, but live out a better future than we're facing right now. And folks, most people aren't on that path. Most people, it's a plateau from about 37 years old onward. And it plateaus and then it declines. And it's like, well, that's just life. That's not just life. That is not the required life that you have to live out. There's so much opportunity if we will lean into it. And a coach, what we're doing as coaches, helps people lean into that opportunity.
Well, I mean, I think the world is confusing, right? The world is very confusing. And I think we as coaches can help maybe clear away the fog.
Or help them clear. I mean, what you do so well, Sabryna, is you don't come and blow my fog away. You come and help me see, Brad, what if you look this direction? Maybe the fog doesn't show up as much. And I go, oh, wow, that was there the whole time, Sabryna. I wish I would have talked to you 5 years ago. Yeah.
So let's maybe talk about some recommendations or thoughts for new coaches, things we have learned, adapted, grown in over the years that would be helpful as they're walking away from this. One thing that comes to mind that we've been talking about is like growth, continuing education, et cetera. And I would just say, as a new coach, continue to coach. There is so much opportunity and there are so many things out there and avenues you can go. And my recommendation, personal opinion, would be if you're wanting to go into the teaching space or you're wanting to go into workshopping space or other areas that you utilize your skills in, also think about how can I continue to coach and like have those sessions, because that's something I've learned over the years is I feel like because I've always got my one foot in that space so that I can then have my other foot in the space of growth in our industry, it allows me to be clearer in those conversations and opportunities because I am actively coaching. So as a new coach, I would just say, continue to coach. And that's where I would start as a recommendation as you're thinking about opportunities. But
cool. We're going to do Sabryna? C words today, not P words today. So, because I was thinking, always be curious. So stay curious, right? Be curious, and that will always keep you open-minded and open to new things. And I think, be okay with experimenting, which is kind of close to your, always be coaching. I would say experiment with the coaching, just experiment. Right. I think I've experimented with so many, like experiment with the podcast, that's an experiment. But like you say, experiment with teaching or doing workshops, like it's cool. Yeah. You actually might not even know, you got to be curious. You might not even know what you're really passionate and about. Yet. You just don't know. So be curious and experiment.
I love that because I think about when I first started coaching, what got me into coaching was this disconnect between health education and behavior change. But my first quote unquote coaching gig outside of my private practice was like being in an industrial workplace setting with people building car parts. You couldn't have told me on my crystal ball that I'd be I'd be coaching individuals in while they're creating car parts in shift work, first, second, and third shift, skeleton shift people for a period of time, and then shift into a healthcare system for PRN support, and then be involved in research, then be coaching college students. So I would say that there's a vast opportunity for experimentation. And along the way, some of those things I really, really enjoyed. Some of those things are the type of coaching I was doing I didn't love after a while because I started to feel like it wasn't my my best version of what coaching meant to me and how I saw it being most impactful, right? So I think the experimentation of what's out there and the willingness to say, yeah, I'll give this a try.
Right.
And know that it's also okay to shift things and find new opportunity over time if that isn't what you're most passionate about or you aren't feeling truly connected to the process. So,
well, the iteration helps, like, regardless, right? Like you said, just coach, because whomever you coach, whatever environment it is, you learn something about yourself and you still build your skills.
Yes. Always coaching.
Mm-hmm. Always
what else
coaching.
Would you?
ABC. Why do I have all these things? I'm becoming a Brad. Is that? Yeah. Is
Join us.
Scary.
Join us on the Coaching Lab podcast for acronyms because the health and wellness industry doesn't have enough. No. Always be coaching. I love that. What else, Sabryna or Brad, would you say as final thoughts or recommendations for
I'll just
coaches?
build on what Sabryna mentioned and maybe take it up one more notch, and that's look for sevens. I think oftentimes there are times that we need to be doing 2s and 3s to pay the bills. I get that. I've been there. I promise you I've been there. But overall, as you're noticing those things that Sabryna was talking about, look for the 7s. Was that a 7? Or we like to say the this moments where you're in a moment and you go, ooh, this. Or you hang up on that last session or you watch the person walk away and you go, ooh, that's that. I really enjoyed it. Like, that's a sign to you. Like, absorb that. Realize that's a sweet spot. It doesn't mean you automatically are going to have 50 clients with that pathway that they're following. But it might be something to lean into because those are special moments. And there are a lot of people in the world that never experience that. And when you do, grasp it. And look for more opportunities. And you might be surprised how much the world tends to shift around your awareness of the possibilities.
I love that because it reminded me of the moments where I had coaching sessions early on. And I thought to myself after, I had like a coaching high almost. I was like, yes, like this was
That's a great way to say it.
You know, it happened. And like it was like I mentioned earlier, it wasn't the time when I was doing much of the moving forward, but it was the client or it was the connectedness with the community. But you'll feel that. And like, I feel like for new coaches, like a little hope, display here is like, that will happen. So like Brad said, like leaning into those moments because other moments will happen when you're like, oh, that didn't go as great. Or, oh, I wish I would have done this differently. And those big moments, ooh, that felt really good. Oh, I'm going to stay up till 11 p.m. talking to my roommate at the retreat because I'm feeling so good about these things. Like those moments will help fuel you forward and use those as information to guide you.
Yeah, we call them glimpses. Look for those glimpses.
Yeah.
Sabryna, any final thoughts or comments to the Catalyst community?
Well, I would just say, stay curious. That was my C. But I would also say enjoy the learning and just embrace this way of getting to serve other people. I think
it's an honor to do what we do.
Mm-hmm. It truly, truly is.
So thank you guys so much for joining us for this conversation. We hope that you got tidbits, things you might write down. You go back further down the road and go back to that moment where we're talking about 7s or ABCs or, other recommendations throughout this episode. But if you found this helpful, we'd love for you to share with a fellow coach or leave a review because it helps us continue bringing these conversations to you. And as always, thank you for being part of the Coaching Lab and the Catalyst community. We'll see you in the next episode, or if you want to connect sooner or have a topic you'd like for us to discuss, reach out at results@catalystcoachinginstitute.com.